Fips ist eine Produktion des Freien Radio Göppingen e.V. Wir sind zu empfangen im Landkreis Göppingen auf 89.0, im Kabel auf 99.2 und weltweit im Internet unter radiofips.de. Verantwortlich für den Inhalt der einzelnen Sendungen sind die jeweiligen Redakteure und Moderatoren. Fips und das Radio lebt.
English Breakfast. Das interkulturelle Morgenmagazin auf Radio Fips. Mit Angeline Fischer.
Hi everyone. Our guest today is Tanya Matifi, a singer-songwriter who tells us about her very first CD release, entitled Under My Hat, under the name of Estledaire. In our talk, we discuss the intercultural aspects as a South African living in Germany, as well as how the CD came into being. Stay tuned to hear more about estledaire with Under My Hat.
You said see you later. What you meant by that took more patience than I got. Get to another lonely night. But you're glamour, baby, my baby, you might. It's always wait and see. Do you have a little time for me? Oh, it's always touch and go. 'Cause you can't give what you don't know. Well, in my dream, I was down on the floor. You'd abandoned me for something more. Baby, my heart was rent when you left, oh baby, when you went. Oh baby, my heart was rent when you left, oh baby, when you went. You said see you later. What you meant by that took more patience than I got. Get to another lonely night. What's your family, baby, my baby? You might. It's always wait and see. But wait and see just ain't enough for me. No. When the chips are down, when I'm in need, you're not around.
Tanya Matifi, otherwise known as Estledaire. Welcome to English Breakfast.
Thank you.
I think that we have a lot to talk about, but before we start talking about the new CD, about this new creation, tell me a little bit about your cultural background and what brought you to Germany.
Sure. Yeah, so I was born in Cape Town in South Africa, grew up there. My father is originally from Europe, but many, many years and many generations in Africa. However, my mother is straight from Scotland. So a huge mixture, because South Africa is a melting pot, not only different African tribes, and also there's Europeans from everywhere.
Okay.
I think because South Africa attracted so many people because of gold, diamond, there's been different times over history that people were drawn to South Africa. And so, yeah, my family is a huge mixture.
Yeah, and what brought you to Germany?
So I met my husband.
Okay.
Yeah, the old story. So my husband came to South Africa first on business, and then he fell in love. And people do say once you've been to Africa, it gets under your skin, and you always want to go back. And I think I met him, I think it was his third trip back to Africa.
Okay.
Yeah. And we met, and it seemed, yeah, we had a bit of a whirlwind romance. We met, and a year later I was married and living in Germany.
Exciting. So it seems like you're quite spontaneous person, at least in some areas. Yeah. Oh, that's very exciting. Do you still have like a connection to South Africa? Do you ever go there, or do you have family there, friends there?
Yeah, very, very strong. I mean, I didn't leave South Africa for a bad reason. And I did actually plan to go back. Most of my family is still there. My parents are still there.
Yeah.
It's been much harder to visit them than I imagined when I moved here.
Yeah.
even without Corona. Now that's just made things very uncertain. But even at the best of times, I only manage to visit them every 2 or 3 years.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is quite heartbreaking in some ways. But I've integrated very well here. So I'm really grateful to have friends in the absence of family, because I don't have any family connections in Germany. But I do feel at home here. And so I feel like I'm a person with two homes.
Yeah.
You probably know. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's, a story that a lot of people experience. Yeah, and especially a lot of our listeners. So I'm sure they can relate. Sometimes the distances are different, or the intervals are different. So I just heard the other day somebody saying that that they go back a few times, if it's depending how far away it is, right? And how cost intensive and the life that we have. Some people, they go every year or even a couple of times a year back if they're Italian or Croatian. The idea of skipping a year is just unfathomable. That is their home, and they have two homes, very much also in terms of being there physically. And then people like us, let's say, the intervals in between are much more spread apart. And so it's, a certain type of melancholy, I guess, that's there. And that, I think in some ways it's maybe good that we didn't know. You wouldn't have done it, right?
No, that's true.
I think.
Yeah.
And also being free, that freedom that we had in our minds to be able to take those steps and discover something new, and otherwise we wouldn't have met. So I'm very happy that we did it. And just another reason, right? So, but of course there's all of those other things. It's complicated.
But I think you grow because you have both these perspectives. Now I'm really not a full-on South African.
Right.
I'm definitely not a German. My philosophy has always been to learn the best that I can. My culture's got strengths and weaknesses, and to try and build on the strengths, learn from what I see around me here, what's great, what's strong here, and try and have the best of both in my approach to life.
That
Of course, now you have another love, which is the love of music. Did you always have an early connection with music, or how did you come to where you are now in your musical interest?
Yeah, I've just loved music, and my family's very musical.
Okay.
So my father has played guitar throughout my life. I just remember family gatherings, everyone playing guitar, sitting around fires, singing. There was music always in our home, and I loved it. And I always, back in the day, would be sitting in my father's car trying to record the top 40 on an old cassette player so I could listen to my favorite music again.
I think that's bringing up a lot of memories for a lot of people. I remember that type of thing. Yeah, speaking into a microphone and having a tape there, or trying to catch exactly the moment.
Exactly. And in the car, because it was the quietest place, that you didn't get any other things interrupting your recording.
Yeah, things have changed so much in production and with all the streaming and everything, but it's still there. This platform, this radio is still there in a slightly different form, but is very relevant. That's really what's so interesting. But I think the voice in particular is something that's very direct and can communicate very directly, just the flow of the voice. But also, of course, music. No other more direct art form, I think. How did you get to being musical yourself? Were you in choirs?
I didn't learn it per se. I just loved singing, and I sang all the time. In fact, the CD cover shows when I was a kid, I spent most of my time either in a tree or in water. And I often used to go climb my favorite tree if I needed some time alone, and I would just sit there for hours singing. Or I'd sing in the cupboard because I didn't want to disturb my family. If I just had to sing, and it was like the wrong time of day, or I didn't want my brother to tease me, so I'd hide in the cupboard and just sing my heart out.
The inclination was always there. It was something that you breathed in from your father, your home, and then it was just, you had this need to express yourself through music very early on. That idea of climbing up in a tree, being close to nature. I've heard that South Africa is a gem in that way when it comes to nature. Maybe you could describe what's the landscape like there in terms of nature.
One of the things that's amazing about South Africa, first of all, it's a very big country, and there are many different climates within South Africa, and a huge range of different landscapes.
Okay.
So I was born in Cape Town, and that has a Mediterranean climate, and those kind of plants, a lot of succulent plants that absorb moisture in the mornings, and that gives them a distinctive look. And there's winter rainfall. Then we moved to Johannesburg. At that time, that province was called Transvaal. It's now called Gauteng. Totally different climate. Very much summer rain. At that time, a very beautiful climate. Of course, the climate everywhere has changed now.
Yeah.
But when I grew up, you'd have the build-up of heat in the summer, and then in the afternoon, there'd be a big thunderstorm, which I love. I love dramatic thunderstorms. So there's a couple of thunderstorms on my CD as well.
Oh, great.
And then everything would cool, and you'd have a very pleasant evening. Yeah. And then dry winters. So it really gets dry, where all the grass turns yellow. Yeah, it's a very strong frost. So much colder than Cape Town is very mild by the ocean. And further inland it can get very cold. In Europe, you've got central heating, so you don't ever really feel the cold. In Africa, if it gets cold in winter, you feel it because the homes are not built for it.
Yeah, you're more connected with it, with the weather. And I can say as a Canadian that there is a different connection to weather, even though we have all these amenities and everything. There always is a real respect for weather and the danger, the strength of weather on an individual can mean life or death. Yeah, it really does a huge impact.
When I was growing up in Johannesburg, we had a 7-year drought. And so we had 7 years of water restrictions. It didn't affect us being in a privileged position as much as it affected other people. We always had water to drink, for example, but we did definitely, because I grew up with it, it has influenced me. I could never just leave a tap running. It if someone
break
leaves a
your
tap
heart.
running, it's something inside me curls up and screams, no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's great. You have that knowledge from those experiences to really treasure those resources. That's actually a wonderful thing that you possess to share with us.
I won't look at the photos or think of what happened to you. When my heart is still bleeding, like the rain beating in through the windscreen where you met to. And the wipers still beating in time with your heart and the night as your light flipped away. Red lights flickered and faded. I still talk to you, though I'm not sure you hear what I say. Oh, please do not leave me. Did you hear the sound of the sirens that fled you to the place where I wait by your bed? Praying the last words are not the last said. I fall asleep with my head on your chest. I dream about the day we first met, and all of our memories, time after time. My life's yours, your death's mine. Now I walk on a path through the forest where your car lost its way. Oh, but you're dripping from leaves. I come every year, rain or cheer, but it's raining today. Softly falling like tears. It's a place where life ended, but I don't come here to grieve, no. Though I can hardly breathe, I've been flowers on the ground when I turn around. You are reaching for me. You was also life's reprieve.
So let's go to today and how you came to this creation, Under My Hat.
So I've been writing songs for, at least 20 years. It never really was an idea that I would make a CD until I think maybe 7 years ago. And I had only started playing guitar at that time. I always was interested in it because of my family, but different life circumstances just made it really impossible for me to have
Did
the
you
time.
perform? Like, were you performing in front of
I
people,
performed,
or-
I was in choirs and I was in drama groups. I also performed in musicals, but I never played an instrument. I wrote songs without playing an instrument. And then I was in a hobby band here in Germany. Of course, we did some of my songs, but it really took a lot of time, if you don't play an instrument, to communicate what you want. Because I can hear the whole band in my mind. But how do you actually communicate that to a band? And just to make it easier, I started learning guitar. Actually, the idea was I would play guitar to communicate it to someone else so that they could play it and I could sing. And as time went on, I kind of developed this very quirky style of playing that has something of its own, which other people can't necessarily play, even if they're very experienced. Just sometimes there's certain things that only I seem to be able to play because they're just so quirky.
unique approach and personality that you bring into the instrument, right?
I think that's the same for everyone. Everyone develops their style, and sometimes you're really surprised. Your hands just do something. You don't know where it comes from, and it's so beautiful. It's really a journey of discovery. I really recommend to anyone to learn an instrument. It really broadens things, even if you just do it for yourself. And I started off just thinking I would do it for myself, but then it turned out that it actually reached other people, and people encouraged me, no, play. And I was lucky because I was in a band. As a complete beginner, I got to play guitar and sing with a whole band, with drummer and bass player. And yeah, so I was in a very lucky position to have that experience.
That's probably where you get that expression to have a signature sound, just as the signature is unique to an individual. That's why we use it for all the documents. How did you get in contact with the band that you started out with?
I started off with a hobby band who actually were a family in the same village that I was living in at that time. And their child went to the same school as my child. So we started just getting together to play. Through them, I met other people. Other people heard us and was invited to join another band. It was for one particular event where we had 10 people from different bands for one event, which was great fun. And then slowly it's sort of built up where through friendships, through connections, and it's just grown. It's the most beautiful thing. I think on the one hand, you've got the music, and on the other hand, you've got the friendships that develop around that. You can't separate that. You can't say which one is more valuable. It's the most beautiful things that happen because the friendships also influence the music then. Then I met my bandmate, Armin Otto, through one of these collaborations. And we had an event we were planning for and rehearsing for. He came late to that project. We only had 2 rehearsals together before the event. And I noticed immediately that he had an intuitive feel for my songs. It was a big range of songs. We did about 5 or 6 of my own songs and then a lot of cover songs. And he just got me. And so that's why I asked him if he'd be interested to perform and also working on a CD. I was like, would he be interested? Would he be interested? And he said he'd be honored. And it's the work with him has been so beautiful because he, on the one hand, brings ideas and on the other hand, has complete respect for me, for my creations. But I very, very seldom have to say, I think it would be better in this direction. It's almost every time he just intuitively, what he does is like, yeah, that's great. And the same as time went on, I got to know Axel Nagel, also a synergy with him because he also, I think he enjoys this kind of music as well. You can feel the difference if you're working with people who like what you're doing. I'm just thrilled by the ideas that he brings. And each of these people who've been involved has enriched the whole thing but always having respect for the original creation. Even the mixing process, which was a big eye-opener for me, because that is another very, very important part of producing a CD. I was so very grateful to have Andy Kemmer working on this, not only because of his expertise, but again because of the friendship that developed. It was just really fun working with him. Even though we had never met in person before, it all happened online, and we only met for the first time at the CD release party. And that's a very beautiful balance to find, and I'm just really, really blessed in the people who've come.
Fips.
Proper cup of tea, the perfect cuppa, favourite cup of tea, English breakfast tea.
This is Angeline Fisher, and you're listening to English Breakfast. In today's program, we're talking with Tanya Matifi, South African singer-songwriter with her debut CD, Under My Hat. English Breakfast can be heard at 89.0 in the Göppingen region or worldwide at radiofips.de. Now let's get back to our guest as she tells us more about this title, Under My Hat. Under My Hat, the premiere CD. What was the inspiration behind the name? How did you come up with this? I mean, I see there are a lot of hats here. If you see the album cover, you'll see. What does that mean? How did you get that title for this premiere CD?
Well, of course, we have the expression, if you keep something under your hat, it's a secret. Songwriting was more or less a secret. Not even members of my family knew that I was secretly writing songs. And I think it was probably around, dare I say it, my 40th birthday. I won't mention when that was. I just realized if there's going to be something that happens with these songs, it's now or never. And it's really time to take the hat off. Yeah. And so it's kind of symbolic of releasing something that you've kept secret for a long time, or a dream that you've had. And I can really just encourage everyone. It's so worth it. Everyone has some kind of dream, and really you have to start somewhere. You have to take the first step. And of course, on the road to trying to fulfill a dream, there are going to be problems, but don't give up. I promise you what I've learned through the last few years, not only because of the CD project, but because of overcoming quite a traumatic thing that I experienced. There's a solution to every problem. You have to find it and you have to keep going, and you can't give up, but you will find the solution. So go for your dreams.
Okay, with those wonderful words, tell us about some of the inspiration behind the songs that you have created, how that connects with your background or your experience or the people that you're collaborating with.
You asked me earlier about the landscapes in South Africa, and the first song there, called You, is influenced by that. I am a Christian and I believe in God, and I had this moment where I was driving my car and I just saw this beautiful landscape in front of me with a mountain called Lion's Head. It's called Lion's Head because it looks like a sleeping lion. And there was a sunset behind that, and it was just black against this glorious orange sunset. And it's just inspired me to thank my creator for this beautiful thing. And then I thought about other things that had meant a lot to me in my life, and how I was taught that God was talking to me through something like that. And so I started writing more about that song. I wrote a lot of songs in my car, driving and singing. Then I asked other people, what ways do you feel God speaks to you individually? You know, not just in a certain language, but also like through a sunset, through an ocean breeze. Friends told me some of their experiences, and I was like, okay, great. Now how do I write this into a song? And somehow it flowed into a song. Some of my experiences, some of other people's experiences. Wow. So that's one of the things that happened there with You.
Great. Let's hear that now.
You silhouette the mountain on a sky blazing with the setting sun. You plunge the evening into blue as an ocean breeze chills me through and through. You made angelfish gape unintelligently, 'cause you knew that that would appeal to me. You were the sublime or ridiculous. You are you, nothing more, nothing less. And I wanna know more. I wanna know what makes you you. Lord, I wanna know more, 'cause I like the way you're you're so you. Sitting in discomfort the ground, like a carpet that muffles footsteps sound. You make the thundering waves stop at my feet, grow sins where east and west don't meet. You made a colorful rainbow after the rain, to remind me that you keep your promise again. You show me in detail that you care, many seasons and perfumes the air.
There's a very direct connection with some of your music to South Africa. Tell us about some of the other inspirations behind some of the songs.
There's a song called Daisy, which actually you'd probably know, Bicycle Made for Two.
Yes.
It's very well known it's actually got a fascinating history of its own in English-speaking countries. And in fact, it was the first song that was sung by a robot.
No.
IBM used Daisy.
Yeah. I think I remember that.
Yeah. And it's been used in films. And anyway, I had a new melody idea. I was playing on my guitar and I was singing a different melody. Somehow the words popped in my mind, Daisy. I didn't want to write a song called Daisy, but I couldn't get rid of it. And it had to be. And this often happens. My experience of songwriting is not so much that I write a song. I feel like songs come to me. I know this is not true. I know in my brain there's something happening, but really the experience of it is as if all around us are songs just waiting for us to express them. And I'm just the medium. And I just happen to be a person who's opened myself for that. And to particular songs, they like me and they choose me. And this was this song, Daisy. And then Daisy is a song about a young couple who want to get married and they have no money and they can't afford a coach. You know, they're going to leave the chapel from when they get married, but the man cannot offer Daisy a coach to go off from there onto their honeymoon. Instead, the best he can manage is a tandem bicycle. And this, as a child, this whole idea I thought was hilarious. It fascinated me, and I sang the old song Daisy with my grandparents. So it's something I always remember about my Scottish grandparents, singing that song with them. They both could sing beautifully. There's a lot of wordplay and really very kitsch jokes in the original. It was written by a man called Harry Dacre at the end of the 19th century. And I kind of adapted the text, and it's a new melody. But it has got something that echoes from the old song.
I love that idea of songs calling you or coming to you that are there. The process of that, how do you do it? How is it for you? You're living your life and you're seeing things and you're getting all these impressions from around your environment. And then a melody comes in your mind. It starts with that more than the text. How is that? How does it interplay?
It can come from both directions. Probably with me, it's mostly melody first. I often have woken up with a song. What's very interesting, there's a song there called Wholesome at the very last song. which I wrote now during this process of making the CD. I just woke up one morning and I had this melody and I had the first word as well. And as usual, I went to get my cell phone to record it so I wouldn't forget the idea. And the whole song came to me. This is the first time that's ever happened to me.
Really?
And I got the whole song in one flow in less than 2 minutes. There's a lot of different overlaps to different things happening in my life. It's called Wholesome because I've been through a lot of trauma, but I've come through now and I'm coming into a really good place in my life. And everything is connecting. So there's a holistic thing in that, the spiritual and the friendships and the music, and things are just falling into place. It's a song about friendship as well. It's a song about relationship. It's also a song about being whole in yourself and then having wholeness in your other relationships. And then I also just love the way I got a whole song in one go. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the problems with the CD was trying to decide which songs go onto the CD. Because it's my first CD and I've been writing for 20 years. I have a lot of material. 10 of them were completely clear because I'd already worked with Armin on 10 of my songs that we perform. We would do 50% of my songs, 50% covers. So it was clear those 10. And then there was another one, I've Fallen For You, which I was pretty confident was going to be on this CD. The other 4 were up for grabs. For each one, I had 3 options. And I just said to Axel, you choose.
Okay.
But then the last one, we were down to 1 song. And then Wholesome came along. And then I said, forget the others. This is what we need.
And this CD is complete.
This is what
it's
we
whole.
need. Exactly.
Wow, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh.
And there's actually the words are, could this be just what I needed to be completed? That song was just what the CD needed to be completed. So that thrilled me because I love symbolism and I love when things interconnect and when you feel purpose behind something.
Yeah, everything tied in together perfectly at that moment. It's really whole. I love that.
Oh, sun, come to the end of the day. Can't wait to hear what you say. I just like hearing your thoughts. Oh, sun, you're with me all through the day. I think of all that you say, and I am grateful to know you. Who are you that you do what you do, that you bring out my best, that you help me find rest? Could this be wholesome, just what I needed to feel completed, to feel me some wholesome, la 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 la, wholesome, la 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 la, wholesome, la 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 la. Punctuality's a bunch of paradigm. When you grow up influenced by African time. When I say I'll be there just now, what I'm saying is something undefined. It may be 15 seconds, it might be half an hour, a day, a month, a year, but any time with you's just fine, my dear. 'Cause you are
punctured, punctuality. Oh, I love the way it sounds. So tell us more about punctured punctuality.
I don't know if you've heard of the expression African time.
Yes, I have.
There's a different concept of time, and I think it can become a problem when different cultures have a different perception of time and a different expectation. And that can lead to frustration for everyone. Of course, we still get things done in South Africa, and we do also have a European standard of time. But I think that the original culture's relationship was much more important than your watch. The thing of building up relationship takes whatever time it takes. And that took priority. I myself have always had a very interesting relationship with time because of things like going into that creative space where you just forget about time. Yeah. Okay. So that's been a thing that I've really had to learn. And then I come from a more laid back culture and with a personal issue with being punctual to the place that's meant is famous for being absolutely on time, which, by the way, I found out is not the case. But definitely I've played with these two different ideas of the philosophy of time is money and this is what's really important, in contrast to the thing of relationship is more important. We're trying to find the balance, right?
Yeah.
Because also it's good for relationships if you show up on time. There's also respect for the other person. On the other hand, you don't want to rush off as well. You want to also give time to unfold in relationships. So I think we can find a balance between these two things. The song is more just about having fun with it and taking the piss out of both aspects of it.
Yeah, humor and laughter and joy can, when we have these differences, which can create conflict or can be very uncomfortable at times, where you have critical incidences where people interpret things differently than the intention is because of different cultural norms. That levity can just give us bird's eye perspective on how ridiculous it is sometimes that we're getting frustrated about these nuances that are not really that important.
And it's also true that there's so many things that everyone laughs about. It doesn't matter what culture you're from. There are certain things that every person experiences. That's maybe frustrating on the one hand and really funny on the other hand. And I just think it serves us much better to laugh about it than to stress about it.
Yeah. Not every song comes the same way.
No, it can be like you're driving in your car, and I think a lot happens when you're in the car because you go into your right side of your brain. You know, something switches the left side of your brain, switches off enough for inspiration to hit you. Dreaming, of course, when you're asleep. I do feel like you can also sit down and just get the things if you have the time. It usually comes to me as a melody, and often right with the melody, you already feel what the topic's about. It might come with one or two words as well, and then you get a sense it's going to be that. Then I've written poems, and I got a melody, and I had somehow an intuition, this needs that poem. And these two things belong together, and then you work on it, it does. Hard for me to call it work because I'm almost driven. For me, it's almost not like work, but I can really sit there and work for really hours and hours and hours.
So passionate.
And it doesn't feel like work.
Not eat, not drink, not bathe.
Yeah. Okay, bathing maybe.
Yeah, but that's the way it is when you're sometimes really in that creative process.
Yeah.
Everything else is gone, at least for a moment, at least for a phase.
Yeah. So I think you might say that it's a lot of work. Hours of going into that and refining it, but it doesn't feel like it to me. It's something that has to be. A lot of people think it's crazy that I went ahead and did this CD and managed to find other people who were crazy enough to work on it with me.
Great.
People say, how many CDs do you have to sell before you cover your costs, which I didn't even think about, of course, because it's not about that for me. This was something that had to be. Those songs chose me, and I had to be the person to mediate them. Now they're there, and I've done my job.
Yes. So that's another experiment, just then putting them into the world in a different context.
peculiar bird. Her voice is muffled by coats, wool, fluff, and dust in her throat. But there's a strange bird singing a strange song. Nobody knew, but she was there all along. Couldn't keep it in, muted by doubts, but now it's time to let it out. Up to the sky, go up to the hilltops, tennies. Don't hide your light, say out. Sing with the birds, so high up in the treetops, tennies. Don't doubt your worth, say out. Even if no one understands, even if no one understands, even if no one understands, sing out. There's a grey felt hat, the sun comes from under that. Her voice is muffled by jeans, her words unheard, her ideas unseen. Yeah, whispers like a dream. Don't fear if you don't understand, everything will be alright. 'Cause I'll take your hand, I'll take you to the sky, take you up to the hilltops, tennies. Don't hide your light, say out, take you to sing with the birds, so high up in the treetops, tennies. Don't doubt your worth, say out. Even if
Getting back to the album, did you think about the order of the idea of listening from beginning to end?
Definitely.
Okay.
First of all, the one big challenge, which songs belong together, and then the order. In the end, those kind of decisions, I kind of ran out of time. I think I've made the right choice, but you never know with these kind of things. You know, it's good that we had a deadline. We had an event in Ireland to release. There were 3 artists, myself with this CD, with Under My Hat, Axel Nagel with his beautiful CD, Casa Ananda, and then Fred, a duo presenting the CD Mag Vorher der Wind. A beautiful evening.
Yeah, and that's actually something fairly unique, isn't it? To have 3 different artists coming together, all announcing their new releases. That's quite a nice idea.
Yeah, when Axel and I started working on my CD last year, and he wanted to work on his new CD at the same time, so hats off to him, if you'll excuse the pun. He produced 2 CDs then in this time. Axel and I had talked about having a mutual CD release, which I was so honored that he imagined doing that, because he's an incredible artist, very, very experienced, and he does also a solo program with looping. So he manages to create this beautiful full band sound just as a person, one person alone.
I know, it's amazing to see something like that live.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's fun because they have to work really quickly. A lot of fun.
The whole looping thing fascinated me, and I thought, I'd love to do that. Until I found out that it took Axel a year to perfect it. And I thought, if it takes him that long, I don't know. This concept came, I think, from the event organizer, Daniela Mühlbeck, in Villa Stürzel, Ireland, to have all 3 of us release our CDs at the same event.
Makes a lot of sense.
It was a beautiful evening, and it was the first time that I met. Of course, I knew Axel, but it was the first time that I met the duo at the end, Manfred and his son Jakob, who are very, very well known in the Ireland area. But it was also his first CD. He's done a lot of work with his other band, but this was also a first for
solo.
him. And for both of us, I read the article in Zafir magazine about his process of writing. although our music is completely different, there were so many overlaps because I never learned songwriting. So it's something that always completely fascinates me to hear about other people's songwriting process and see the overlaps. And I'm like, yes, exactly. Because it's not that I meet people every day who have the same experience.
Okay.
So that's something that always makes me really happy.
Yeah.
It's a sad thing, but the other reason why we had the time to do it was because of Corona. So
Yeah.
I think this was, he mentioned in his article, when life presents you lemons, make lemonade. Suddenly he, as a professional, Axel as well as a professional musician, suddenly no gigs and
Right.
so on. Sad time, but also you have time. And so people didn't just sit back and do nothing. They used the time creatively. I feel so strange saying I'm so grateful for the time that we had, even though the only reason we had that was because of the situation. It's a very sad situation, but then something really did come out of it. Here people talk about Glück im Unglück.
Yeah.
And so we found that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, yeah. But some professional artists really did buckle down and manage collaborations. Sometimes people did totally new collaborations online, which are different. Of course, you don't have the same sound quality, but still they could reach out to people. So many of these musicians were at home in front of their computer trying to reach out to their communities, but it also gave them a more free time where some would collaborate with other musicians that they otherwise would have never done. Other people always had projects that they never got to and they could get to. So sometimes there was some interesting ideas that came out of it, trying to give experiences. So I know one musician, for instance, he developed a tea in that time. He collaborated on a tea. And then he had, I think, also at the same time, a CD release. And his wife makes paintings. And so they did a collaboration of some sort together and sent people packages out. They had then their live virtual get-togethers to experience this tea that they collaborated with and thought about would go with this music. And then they had postcards that they could send to each other or something like this. You know, they had like a concept that was totally different, not something that they would have done in the past because it's really a live performer. Yeah, so sometimes there were some good ideas that came out of it. Also with technology, getting acquainted with different types of technology. So some things did come out of it, but I still think that there was a loss in terms of just live performance.
Yeah,
and it's a different medium, right?
Definitely.
Live. But yeah, wonderful. Now that you've completed this CD and had the release, what are some of your future plans? What are you thinking about in the future with music or other projects you're involved with?
It's there, but it's now getting it out further. On the one hand, I do feel like I've done my job in terms of it's there, but I do want to carry on performing and yeah, I'd like to do more gigs now. Things are opening up a little bit. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I'm just going to keep doing that. I've got some other personal things. My daughter has just moved out. So I'm coming into a new phase of my life. I'm also making it up as I go along again. And I think that is something with me. It's always going to be some improvisation. If you're a person who is spontaneous and likes to try new things, there's always risk involved and there's always an unknown factor. So I'm again at a new chapter. I'm carrying on with the things that I love doing in my job and so on. But I have a few things up my sleeve. Okay. Don't worry.
Yeah, well, you have to keep us posted. If someone would like to get in contact with you to collaborate or they might be interested in having you perform, how can they best get in contact with you?
On my website, estledaire, on Facebook, estledaire. And you can contact me through there.
Then I'd like to thank you very much for being our guest here on English Breakfast. It was a pleasure having you here.
Oh, it was wonderful to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me today. featuring Estledaire with her very new CD entitled Under My Hat. As always, if you would like to find out more details about our programming, please look to our website or contact me directly through social media on our Instagram channel or on Facebook. This is Angeline Fisher signing off for English Breakfast, wishing you the very best wherever you may be in the world. Until the next time.
Fips ist eine Produktion des Freien Radio Göppingen e.V. Wir sind zu empfangen im Landkreis Göppingen auf 89.0, im Kabel auf 99.2 und weltweit im Internet unter radiofips.de. Verantwortlich für den Inhalt der einzelnen Sendungen sind die jeweiligen Redakteure und Moderatoren.